Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our NextGen podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, one of Aldea's very own practitioners in the Nelspruit branch, Marina, and she is going to share something special with us that is not only been a part of her life, but has also brought her to where she is today and has full passion in her heart. So, Marina, welcome to Gen Podcast. It's very nice to have you here.
Hello. Oh, it's very nice to be here.
So, Marina is a sibling of a child with special needs, actually a few. So, I'm going to ask Marina to maybe give us an idea of what your family structure looks like. How did you grow up? Where do you fit in family?
So I come from a very big family, lots of cousins and aunts and uncles, but my family structure, my immediate home, is two older sisters and a younger brother. My elder sister, she is chronically ill. My second older sister, she is neurodivergent and also chronically ill. And my younger brother has ADHD and dyslexia. So I grew up surrounded by neurodivergence.
Okay, sure. And how is your relationship with your family, Marina?
My relationship with my family is fantastic. I love them all very dearly. I would do anything for them. They are my entire heart.
Great. So we have done a podcast before on the effect of neurodiversity on the siblings of children with special needs. And I think what makes today very special is we are not only speaking about the theory or what we see as practitioners, but actually speaking to you who is working as a practitioner in the field, but who has first-hand experience with this feeling and what it's like being a sibling of a child with special needs. So, Marina, is there any event, a specific event, that you can recall that has influenced how you felt about achieving success as a sibling?
So I believe that every day I learn something from my siblings, especially a lot of compassion and empathy. I learn to listen, I learn to understand. But a specific event that stands out, that kind of formed my mindset as a young child was in grade seven. I won a prize to become a leader in the school prefect. And that night also won a trophy for arts and culture. And my sibling had a complete mental breakdown because they didn't get it the year before. And there was tears, there was screaming, there was crying, full blown meltdown. And almost want to say I became scared of that success I could achieve. And I made myself less and smaller to not trigger this big fiery thing. And a big thing I learned later years, I think it's really, really important, is I learned to separate my sibling, my best friend, from the meltdown. So I always say it was a meltdown. It's never my sibling. It's sometimes they get meltdown, sometimes they scream, sometimes they say things they don't mean. But that's not being my sibling. That is just a meltdown happening. And in an hour, they're gonna forget what they said in any way, and we're gonna watch a movie together and be best friends again. So having that separation kind of is what helped me get myself back from being scared of success.
Yeah, I think, as adults, we know that children with special needs, well, children in general, but especially children with special needs struggle with emotional regulation. And I think for you as a child, not having that knowledge must have been really difficult because you didn't really understand the situation. And it's wonderful that you can now look back at it. But as a child, it must have been very difficult looking into the situation and trying to make sense of what's going around you.
Yeah, and you learn to see things other people don't. So when my sibling she had seizures, non-epileptical seizures, and to avoid that, I learned her triggers. So I would walk in a place and I would see the flashing lights, even though I'm not affected by them. I pick up on these small things, Small things my friends don't even care about. I'm like, okay, there's going to be a trigger. Don't say that, that can trigger. And learning how to navigate life by making sure that everyone around me is okay. And yes, that has its strong suit, so I am very aware of what's happening around me, but I'm also constantly aware, so sometimes that gets exhausting. Um, but yeah, I learned how to see the story behind the story because sometimes there would be a meltdown and a big fight in my house. And then I will explain to my mom, okay, it's not because someone took the cereal, it's because this and this and this happened the day before. This is just a result of that. It's not about a small issue, it's a much larger issue at hand. And I'm always looking at, especially working at Odaya, I'm always trying to find the reason behind the smaller trigger and event.
Okay, and that actually brings me to my next question. How has all of this affected you in the long term?
I would say if it weren't for my siblings, I always think if I was an only kid, I would have had like no empathy or sympathy or compassion. I think they made me who I am today because I love people. I love working with people, especially neurodivergent kids, and they just gave me my passion, which I think is fantastic. But also, there are things that influence me on the side, things that were said, things that were done that does make it harder, but I believe that this is a price to pay for what the good they brought into my life. Because I think I would honestly, I love my siblings so much. And I learned how to sit with people in their hardest, darkest moments and just listen because sometimes you saying anything will achieve absolutely nothing. And if you sit and you just reflect back what they were saying, then you start seeing the real person.
Yeah, I think, as the sibling that you've grown up to be, I think your emotional intelligence has grown a little bit more than your average person would have because you learn things earlier in life than other people would have. There's a lot of people who only start learning things like that when they're
Yeah.
older. So I think it gives you a little bit of an edge, but I also think in a way it must have also been difficult because, you had to almost grow up faster than other people would have.
Yeah, so I grew up much faster. I am the third of four siblings, but I sometimes feel like the oldest, especially since my oldest sister is much older than the rest of us. She and my youngest brother have 13 years in between them, which is quite a lot. So she is like the oldest on off doing her own thing, and it's me and my other two siblings. And I always felt like the oldest, and then like, oh no, you're number three. I'm like, I have so much responsibility. And part of that, especially with my grandparents, we were also very involved in my family, both my mom's parents and my dad's parents. And they went to hospital a lot. And I learned so much communications with people, how to communicate with the family when they're in hospital, how to communicate with the nurses and doctors in their needs and translate for someone who might be hard of hearing. That's something I would always be able to do because of how my family is, and I'm really, really thankful for that. It was hard in the moment. Sometimes I felt like I wanted to run away or lock myself in a room, and I did. I think I started acting out as a teenager, rebelling, making it like making my mark, making sure my parents actually tried to see me. And so I wanted to be seen, and I did that in any way possible. And as I grew older, I just learned how to do that in a much more productive way.
Okay. So, Marina, you talk about responsibilities when you were younger. Do you still have responsibilities towards your siblings now that you are an adult?
Well, I don't think it's as much as a more responsibility as something I really enjoy doing. So I talk to my siblings every day, especially my one sibling, the neurodivergent one. We play a game together every single day, and it's my favorite time of day. We talk call and talk for 30 to 40 minutes. Just play this game, make sure everything, talk about life. I hear about everything that's happening at home, and it's nice for me. I make sure everyone's okay. I will talk to my parents and relay the stories they tell me, like, oh, okay, they feel like this. So maybe approach it like that because in my household, I was labeled the neurotypical translator in full brackets, but I always translate for my sister. So, okay, I think she feels like this, not actually the way she, like, you see it or you think how it looks on the outside, but I can look deeper because we are this close and go deeper and say, this is actually how she feels and this is why she feels that way. And sometimes I still have to remind my parents, like, she doesn't think the way you guys think. So keep that in mind.
Okay. So what advice would you give to parents of who has a sibling who does not have and who have neurodivergent children?
Celebrate their success and make sure they feel seen. But besides that, make sure them and their sibling get time together to get to know each other. Because if I avoided my sibling, so all of them, I wouldn't have known them for who they are and had that love and compassion in me for them. So they have to learn compassion for each other and also know that for the neurodivergent sibling, sometimes the successes might be scary. So I get to go to university, I get to move out, but you still can't, or you can't try yet. And sometimes that is also hard to face, and the parent has to say, okay, yes, you got your license, we are celebrating, we're taking out for dinner, but we're just going to make sure they're okay and not have them worried about this. So that balance between the two is very, very important.
Okay. And what advice would you give to the neurodivergent siblings? What
The
is it
near,
that you can say that you would like them to know?
I want them to know is that it's not personal. We are just different in you. So it's not personal. What happened is not your fault. Sometimes it's really just, I heard from a lot of first-hand experiences, like my family and even other people, they don't want to get angry, they don't want to scream, but in that moment, it feels like this uncontrollable rage or this uncontrollable sadness. And so when they get back, I think it needs to be said that they don't want to be like that always. Sometimes they hate the things they said, but they can't take it back. And it's not the fault of the sibling, the typical sort of sibling, that they can have maybe extra things or they can get this. And you should be best friends because having someone to fight for you is worth it. And having that friend in someone.
Sure, Marina, I think they can be very, very lucky to have you as their sibling, and I think your parents can be very happy to have you as their daughter. And, I've seen in your work how all of this have spilled over into you seeing a little bit deeper than the average person would see in a child. You have more patience, you will think of, like you mentioned earlier, you will think of extra things before just going into full blown angry mode. You'll say, maybe it was this, or maybe it was this. And you have a way of relating to children with neurodiversity because of your experience. So I think when we did our podcast on siblings, we spoke a lot about what the negatives can be. But I think you brought to the table today what the positives are. I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to add from your side.
I just think it's really, really important for everyone because this happens in neurodivergency, this happens in neurotypical children as well. But that people pleasing is so dangerous, especially when you grow up as an adult and you don't know how to speak up for yourself. You don't want to rock the boat. So you're not going to tell the waitress you found a worm in your salad, or you don't want to make a mess in your relationship, so you don't speak up. And to avoid that, there should be the opportunity for children to say what they think, to say what they feel in a safe, stable environment. So become your children's confidant. Make sure they can tell you exactly how they feel without getting offended. Because if you get offended, oh no, a terrible mom or a terrible parent, or I might as well go give your sibling up for adoption. Instead of doing that, just listen and don't take offense, even though it is offensive sometimes. Just again, listen for the story behind the story, because there's always a behind to everything. One of my favorite analogies for this is a massive tapestry. I believe life is a tapestry. And right now, we are this close to the backside of this tapestry and seeing all these ugly loose strings and wires everywhere, and we can't see the full picture. But when you take your time and see the front of the tapestry and take a few steps back, you can see this big picture being built. And sometimes it's without our knowledge, but it's part of a bigger picture, everything.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Marina, and thank you so much for joining us today. I think
No
you have given
worries.
all of us a lot of thoughts on what how to approach siblings with of kids with special needs, but also how it can enrich their lives as well. So thank you so
Yeah,
much for joining us.
no worries.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a good day further and listen to us again for our next podcast.